It's been a while. Okay, so today is 15th of February. I completely lost track of time. And let's not talk about my hair, let's not talk about him. A lot of stuff happened from the last update. Both life stuff, which I will probably never talk about, but also I went further into the project because stuff arrived. Who knew? It's been a month. It only takes 2 weeks to get stuff from AliExpress. First thing that I want to talk about is I received an LED strip that is addressable to do the test I said I would do in the last video. It works. Cue in B-roll footage of it actually working, and I specifically chose an LED strip with a very high resolution, like this is 144 pixels per meter, and theoretically it could be done in the sense that I can take a single LED, put it inside an arcade button and wire it up. The thing is, after I made the previous video about this project, I realized something else. Let me grab it. So basically, this is the LED module that is inside the arcade button. I'll try to, okay, you can kinda see it. I realized that in this case there is an LED and resistor inside this entire module, and then you slot this module in the arcade button so it's right up against the moving part. And this is supposed to be 12 volts, but there's nothing preventing me from replacing the LED inside with a lower power one and put the resistor in the PCB. So the final decision the final decision on how will lighting work in the controller: single LED connected through another microcontroller, LED with lower power and resistor. So everything about this has been okay. So it's not a waste because I still wanted to do this test, but it's been so long, so I found a better alternative, and the one I will actually go for the controller. Plus I have an LED strip which I can use in the future. Second thing that I want to talk about is also the rotary encoder arrived, and it is much smaller than I imagined, because like I imagine it was something like this big, but no, it's small, and it's actually better this way because I have less restrictions on how big the part should be. And also I found another project using rotary encoders with Arduino to make EEDX controller, and the README for that project said that 24 pulses per revolution is low resolution, 600 is higher resolution. So I think I went with the safe option. Third thing that I want to talk about is probably the biggest thing everyone is not waiting for, which is the CAD model. I've started the CAD model. And here it is. Okay, so here it is. It's just the top face. There's literally nothing else at the moment. And this was still a nice exercise because I had to make the actual design in Sketcher and actually using real world dimensions to make everything. So at the moment I've ended up with this for the top face, which has a 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters square profile, which is still small enough that fits in my desk, leaving a bit of space for the disk part. The main problem for making this CAD was I needed to know how big the margin between the buttons were, and I could not find this online, like at all. I ended up going to the Consent Stuff Discord server, which, thank you, but please put this stuff online somewhere, like the EEDX site itself, because it already has a develop. Anyway, after trials and tribulations, I got the horizontal margins and vertical margins for the buttons, and I used them to actually make this CAD model. To explain, essentially, this model is parametric, so I can change any dimension as I want. Like, for example, the vertical margin between top row and menu buttons is controlled by this dimension, so if I put it much bigger, the controller suddenly changed. But I don't want to change it because... oh no, che cazzo è successo? So, the design you've just seen is not the first one I made, because I had to do some adjustments. So here I will present you the first prototype of the faceplate for the buttons. You might already see something which I will discuss later, but this was a complete failure because the buttons did not fit, like, at all. And also I tested something with a 3D printer, so this is not strong enough, and if you squint you can actually see through the infill, which is not that great. So I adjusted some tolerances for the buttons, and this is prototype 2. The top ones worked for the tolerances, the bottom ones, the main ones, did not, and I had to adjust them some more to converge into the third prototype. And in this prototype, buttons actually fit, but it required too much force for what I wanted, and so I ended up going to the fourth prototype. This one I will show it with the arcade buttons already mounted. Also because I need to explain two reasons why I did this. The first one is to adjust the tolerances on the buttons, but also let's take the third prototype. It is higher. And the reason the first three prototypes are smaller is because if I flip it around, I've put the arcade buttons with the entire arcade hardware inside. And as you can see, it's dense, like very dense. And if I decide to put a PCB, it has to be like this, which will be the bottom part. So it has to be like this. And in the third prototype, I mean every prototype, 1, 2, 3, the buttons were so close to each other that I realized that there might be conflicts of not being enough space for the contacts. And so this is why I printed the fourth prototype by making it a perfect square, 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters, because at this point I can actually put the contacts and I feel better knowing there's enough space for wiring, which is the important thing. And also there is another error that I've discovered with this prototype. The menu buttons are mounted rotated, so I have to rotate them in the CAD, because at this moment they point sideways while they should point downwards, so I can actually connect them. As for how it fits dimension wise, I tried doing the lab test, like controller in here and using it, and I also realized something which confirmed what I presumed. I need to change these buttons as soon as possible because they are shit. They are too heavy, and it should not be a controller where you play a song and your index fingers hurt like a lot, because this is too heavy. You having spring plus microcontroller, so I need to change that as soon as possible. But dimensions wise, it's not bad, but they weren't bad also in the smaller prototypes. So I'm happy for now with these dimensions. I might make them a bit smaller because I like the idea of having a small controller, but like not by much. Also for another reason. I still have to design the turntable, and the turntable, for how I imagine it, it should be a square with the same dimensions as the height. So if the height is bigger, the entire turntable module is bigger, and I'm debating whether I should stick to the smaller one and keep it in general smaller, or make it bigger using these dimensions and not the ones from the prototype. But end up with a bigger controller that might not fit entirely on my desk, which is the entire point of doing this, is so I can actually play it. 22nd of February, I started working on the electrical side for lighting, and I just show you. At this moment, this button is lit up. Let me just turn off the ambient light real quick. There we go. But you might notice a bit of a problem. You cannot actually see the light because of how dim it is. Because this single LED is not enough to show it through this plastic white it's not cover, it's anyway. So option 1, which is what the easiest thing would be, in connecting the LED straight up from the microcontroller is not an option, because this is the test I'm using right now. So connecting it, why is English hard? Straight from the microcontroller, not bright enough. I have to increase the voltage. I could try 5 volts, but I don't think it's gonna be either enough. Might actually have to go straight to 12 volts. Hi, 28th of February, expansion literally just dropped, so you know what I have to do. Cioè, che fai? Non apri le buste. Sono appena uscite. Might as well share it. Nothing. 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 Literally nothing. Nice pack. But anyway, you're not here for me to open Pokemon packs, because I do not do this stuff on this channel. You're here for duedx, so might as well start with the updates. So, let's start with the most boring stuff first. I did some improvements in the CAD model, mainly adding depth for the actual controller based on the actual height of the buttons, as you can see. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing to say really, it's just a shell, which I spent way too much time doing because order of operations is important. Who knew? But let's start with the actual interesting stuff for this update. It's time to share the electrical design. I know this project is mainly for me to learn new skills. It's mainly 3D printing, CAD modeling, and electrical connections. But boy, did I struggle with this. Because, okay, making a switch that is pull up, no problem. I actually learned this in a university course, so not a big deal. Connecting switch to a microcontroller, same thing. Okay, I'ma be honest, I had to ask for help for this part, and I still have no fucking idea. This is mainly because of the LEDs requiring 12 volts for the actual connection, but you cannot just connect 12 volts through a microcontroller because otherwise you burn it, and so you need transistors, but transistors are, I still do not understand them, and I just know that NPN is correct type because reasons I still have yet to learn. I'm struggling so much with this side of the project. Like, okay, I know what components I should probably need. I can connect them, but like, I could not figure out this. And the worst part is, it's basically the same thing repeated 11 times, because the switch is one configuration, which is pull up, repeated 11 times. How to drive an LED? Perfect, something like this, repeated 11 times. And so now the only remaining things are figuring out all the values for these resistors, which I still have I need to do some calculations on that. Same thing for these resistors, and also figuring out which transistor, as in the actual model number, to use. And also there's something missing here, like this 3.3 volts should not be directly connected to the micro. There's something still missing on this electrical schematic. This is where I realize I actually need a full-on course for electrical connections, and YouTube is not cutting it, like, at all. Goodbye.